This video is sponsored by Surfshark, the best VPN on the market. Surfshark is an app or browser extension that allows you to change your location to access websites in other countries and keep you safe from hackers. For example, we here in Ireland can access other countries' Netflix libraries, streaming services such as DAZN in Spain for those all-important Premier League games. Surfshark keeps you safe and private by protecting everything you do online. When your device connects to the internet, all that information is, in a way, blurred out. Surfshark is particularly useful for keeping you safe if you use public Wi-Fi, such as a college or a cafe. Surfshark allows you to use one subscription on unlimited devices, meaning that you can even share an account with friends and family. On top of this, Surfshark offers a 30-day money-back guarantee, so if you don't like it, you can even get your money back. Our sign-up offer gives you Surfshark VPN for just over €2 per month and up to 4 months free. Why not scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description to take advantage of this offer. What is up, my friends? How are we? I know there's Premier League action on, but I do appreciate you coming in to have a chat with me. Tonight we're going to speak about the situation with Antoine Semenyo. We're going to talk about selection headaches for Arne Slot. We'll hear what John Aldridge has to say around it. We'll hear what Paul Merson has to say around it, specifically around Mohamed Salah. We'll talk about Ibrahima Konate and what he's had to say. Of course, lots of other bits and pieces, including some updates from Arne Slot from his press conference. We'll do a little bit on Mark Gay, but as always, appreciate you being in. Goals are flying in at Craven Cottage tonight. I think it's 5-2 now to Manchester City in that game as I currently sit here against Fulham. So yeah, look, we're in action tomorrow. Just a reminder, it is an 8:15 kickoff, so we'll be live from 7 o'clock tomorrow night to take you through. As always, though, we want to know your thoughts tonight, so whatever you want to discuss, the floor is yours. Issa Judah said, Craig, the old city is back. Look, for us, mate, at this point, we need to just work our way up the league table. You know, I don't want to be talking about Liverpool in the context of Arsenal and Manchester City and Chelsea at the minute because, you know, we have quite a bit of making up to do before we get back into that conversation. But you know, if there is any positive to be taken from the Manchester City situation from our perspective, it could be that they had their version of our year last year and they're finding their way back now. You know, when the rot really does stop for Liverpool, that remains to be seen. But yeah, loads to go through. Loads and loads tonight. We're going to talk about how poor we are from set pieces as well, because the stats have been put out for this one and Liverpool are shockingly bad from set pieces. With the XG created per attempt, we are bottom of the pile in the Premier League. No joke, bottom, right, rock bottom. Yeah, so we'll talk about that tonight as well. We'll have a little chat around what dates Mohamed Salah will be going to the AFCON. They've been confirmed today, so we'll talk about that. We'll give you some words from Arne as well. Els Juice, I don't like City, but it'd be funny if Arsenal don't win it. Honestly, I do think Arsenal win. Same as us last year, they just look like they have that model of consistency that City haven't yet been able to find. And continuity is important as well in these scenarios. You know, you can't write off how important it is to have players that understand what the manager wants, what each other wants, and that takes time, that takes repetition. Win the next 5 games would be a start, said Paul. It'd be a lovely start, Paul, wouldn't it? It would be a lovely start, mate. That would be 6 wins then. So I was looking through the fixtures earlier on, Paul, and look, they are eminently winnable. We've got this game coming up tomorrow against Sunderland, and they haven't been great away from home. I looked at it, they've played 6 games away from home in the Premier League, averaging 7 points, so just over a point per game. So hopefully, you know, we can start building up our home form. Sunderland have been magnificent at the Stadium of Light, but, you know, hopefully tomorrow at Anfield, under the lights, the real Liverpool show up. We need some serious set-piece coaching. Yes, we do. 60s red. Yes, we do. I was really surprised to see quite how low. Like, Connor sent this to me earlier on, and normally when I see graphs and charts and stuff, my eyes glaze over and I get bored. But it jumps off the page to you here how bad Liverpool are with set-pieces. Attacking, not defending, attacking. We're the worst in the league, and I actually can't believe I'm saying that, but we are bottom of the pile. Brentford will be next to us, but Chelsea lead the way, who've been really, really good from set-piece opportunities, even if they are getting offside goals, which the goal against Arsenal seems to be. I don't know if you guys have seen that one, but it looks like Enzo was in an offside position. So yeah, Liverpool bottom of the pile, and that's not good enough. you know, we've got really, really big players in there. Virgil van Dijk, Ibrahima Konate. Gravenberch is no slouch either. He's a fairly tall fella. And we're not really doing much from an attacking sense there. I feel like if we took Virgil out of our team or our set pieces, we never really score. I want to disagree with Jamie Carragher about something tonight, and I wanted to get your opinion on it. So let me read out what Carragher's had to say, and it's about Luis Diaz and Liverpool losing him in the summer. So basically, the crux of this is that Jamie Carragher doesn't think that Luis Diaz's departure deserves the kind of scrutiny it's merited. And let me just talk about this. So he said, that's where I think the hierarchy of the club has said that Arne Slot is only the head coach. He was going on about it on the Overlap fan debate. And he said, but the Liverpool hierarchy said he's 28. If we give him a new contract, he'll be on massive money. It was a good deal for Liverpool, and he's going to look good in the Bundesliga because it's not as good a league as the Premier League. Diaz was a very good player for Liverpool, but he wasn't great. He wasn't Firmino. He wasn't Mane. He wasn't Salah. Now, I don't disagree with Jamie Carragher. He didn't reach the levels of Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah or Bobby Firmino, but he was a good player. And he was important because he gave us something that we don't really have now, which is that fight up front. He went on to say, he was a good player. Liverpool got some good years out of him and got a good price. It was a deal for Liverpool. What they haven't done to it is replace him. But if Wirtz becomes what we hope him to be, he's a different player, but he's the type of player between the lines. Look, what annoys me, and dare I say it, most Liverpool fans about the Luis Diaz situation is we can all accept that he wanted to move away from the club. We can all accept that it was a good deal price-wise for Liverpool. But what I'm struggling to accept is Arne and the club saying that they don't want to bring in anybody to block the pathway for Rio Nguimoa because we're not seeing Rio getting any minutes. So it's a no-win situation here at the minute. The manager isn't using Rio. We are down a player on that side, and we're down a very energetic, aggressive, in a good way, player with Luis Diaz. I wanted to zoom this in because this kind of links in to the Antoine Semenyo stuff that I wanted to cover tonight. So let me just lead in with what I've said there about the pathway not being blocked, because this really winds me up. Where is it? Okay, not that one, not that one, not that one, not that one. Yeah, this one. So this comes from Greg Evans, who said, despite admiring pacey wingers like Antoine Semenyo, Liverpool is unlikely to rush into signing another attacker after recent heavy spending. The club is conscious of not hindering the development of Rio Nguimoa and wants to see how Frimpong performs once recovered. Now, I've got to say, I'm getting fed up with this, the Rio Nguimoa excuse. And I dare say you guys are as well. Because if we were playing Rio, no problem. But we're not. We're not even giving him decent amounts of minutes on the pitch. So we're blocking a pathway for a player who isn't getting a pathway. He isn't getting minutes. He isn't getting youth minutes. He isn't on loan. He's just sitting there training and playing 0 minutes or garbage minutes when Arne wants to rest somebody's legs. So this to me is worrying because we're screwing ourselves. Now on top of this, there's a story from Sky Sports that said that Spurs are intensifying their interest in Antoine Semenyo ahead of the January transfer window. So I don't know if Liverpool will come into action here at all. If Spurs make a play for Antoine Semenyo in January, we know what the release clause is. It's 65 million quid or 60 million and 5 million in add-ons. Will we see a situation like we did with Luis Diaz, where Spurs wanted to get him in from Porto? Liverpool had originally planned to wait to sign Diaz till the summer window, but because Spurs were making a move, Liverpool jumped in ahead and got him. I hope so. But I still say, and I'll reiterate this, centre-back has to be the priority in January for me. Centre-back is position number 1 that needs to be strengthened, in my humble opinion. Spurs are awful, mate. I don't know why you would go there. I don't know why either. Especially as I think he grew up an Arsenal fan, and that doesn't mean he wouldn't go and play for any other team, but I think he could wait, and should wait, because look, Spurs are a mess right now. If I was a player, I wouldn't be rushing to go there. The fans are booing the team. Their home record has been horrendous this season. And they're just a little bit all over the shop under Thomas Frank. He doesn't seem to have the same goodwill from the Spurs fan base as he did have from the Brentford fan base, because, of course, he did a very good job there. So I'm hoping that, you know, this might speed up our interest. But what's been reported today, as I've said, is that, you know, it's Spurs that are looking to push ahead. Now, Manchester City's name is in the mix as well, but Manchester City, they believe, would need to move a few players on. So we'll talk about that as the evening goes on as well. There was something else here I missed, I think, from somebody. Was there a members chat or something I missed? Let me just check in. No, I didn't. I'm all good. Right, so we keep going. This is Ibrahima Konate, by the way, speaking about Liverpool's form. He said, the last time something like it happened, I've no idea. I don't even know if it's happened in Liverpool's history, losing so many games in a row. Now, it is part of football. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. The curve is never stable. And most important thing is to stabilise it. Is anybody else getting a pain in their arse listening to our players talking about what needs to happen and how much it's annoying them and how much it's hurting them? Just go out there and do your talking on the pitch, lads. I know sometimes these guys are asked questions and they have to answer them, but ultimately, it's all just waffle. Get out there, keep winning games of football, and everything will be grand. We're going to speak a little bit about Ederson tonight as well, because there's been not the goalkeeper Ederson, but the Atalanta midfielder Ederson, whose name has once again been linked with us. Dominic King has been speaking about quite how available Mohamed Salah has been for Liverpool since he's joined, and this is very impressive, I have to say. So he writes that I knew Mohamed Salah, the Liverpool record was amazing, but my God, Opta Joe has just confirmed it. There have been 317, so 317, Premier League matches since Mohamed Salah made his debut at Watford in August 2017, and there are only 17 that he's failed to play in. That's incredible, but it also feels wrong. And let me try to explain why I think it feels wrong. Is that taking into account the AFCON games that he's been away for? Because if it is, then it's super impressive. Like if that 317 and he's only missed 17 includes his time away at the AFCON, then wow, that is super impressive. To be available for that many games over such a prolonged period speaks to his durability. And that's one thing that whatever we say about Mohamed Salah, wherever we are in the debate about whether he should be starting or not, he has been extremely durable during his time at Liverpool. Like very, very few injuries have ruled him out. 60s Red said, action needed, not words. Yes, sir. Right, shall we talk about the Atalanta stuff? So this comes from Indy Kayla, so again, take it with a pinch of salt. But they write, exclusive Liverpool updates. Arne Slot's job is still on the line. The next two games are vital. Liverpool eyeing January move for Atalanta midfielder Ederson, and Manchester City must sell marquee player to sign Antoine Semenyo. This leaves Liverpool as favourites currently. On the Ederson thing, I'm a huge advocate for him. I've been saying it for a few years. I love him. I think he's a really good footballer and a really well-rounded footballer. Atalanta have, of course, lost their manager at the end of last season. He's now managing Roma. They've moved on a few players, and that team has been stripped of a lot of the players that have been so good for them over the last few years. I love him, but I wanted to know if you guys would be happy if Liverpool signed him. So I'm going to ask that as the first poll question tonight. One sec. So, would you take Ederson as a DM signing? Now, he isn't an out-and-out six in the way that I would talk about, let's say, Fabinho. But he is somebody who can play as a deep-lying midfielder, and he is able to shield the defence. He can also play as an 8, but every time I've watched him, I've been super, super impressed by him. There are better ones out there, and I'm not trying to say there aren't better options, and the likes of Adam Wharton, maybe Elliot Anderson, players who we've been linked with, very good. But this would be, in my opinion, a good all-rounder and a good, decent signing to bring in for what I'm sure would be a fairly reasonable fee. Mark, how are we, dude? Our signing should be a centre-back, two central defensive a centre-back times 2, I think you meant. Central defensive midfielder and a right winger to replace Mo. I'd just say a winger. I'd say a winger, Mark, because I don't think, yes, Mo needs to be given competition, but I do think we could do with somebody who could play either side, so somebody who can do the left job as well for us. The real Johnny Sins, how are we, dude? said, Craig, I'd still sack him in a heartbeat, but I'm willing to be won over by him. Only if we win the next 6 or 7 in a row. Only wins, no slip-ups. That's kind of where I'm at, mate. You know, I'm still of the mindset that I think he should have been fired, and I think he's walking a tightrope. But we all have to be able to be won back over. And as you said, if he puts together a run here of 6 or 7 wins, at least, you know, at least you're open to being won back around, which is kind of where I'm at. You know, I don't take any pleasure in talking about what the manager gone. I'm sure you don't either. But yeah, this is what we're going to need. Not a victory against West Ham, you know, not just struggling through. We're going to have to actually look like it's clicking and we're going in the right direction. And that does need a prolonged amount of games and a prolonged amount of wins. And also performances, I would say. How much is the fish times 3? Said, yo, Craig, how's you, sir? Good, thank you. Good, thank you. Yeah, I'm good. I was at the doctor today. Finally got diagnosis on my shoulder, which was great. It's only taken me 6 weeks to get my ass to the Irish doctor, but you know, I was away when I was on holidays and went to doctors over there, but finally went today, so I'm good, thank you, mate. You said, got your beautiful voice on in the background while I struggle with COD, Call of Duty, right? I think I'm good right on that one. Hoping Liverpool can carry on winning. Yeah, defo, man, definitely. Look, Liverpool winning makes my life a lot better, makes me a lot happier. So yeah, we need to win, man. We need to win. But yeah, like I said, went to the doctor today and finally got a diagnosis that I've got nerve damage in my shoulder and my, was it trapezoid, one of those muscles. So yeah, at least now I know what I'm working with, and it will probably take me another 6 weeks before it fully heals up. But she did say to me that nerve damage was the worst kind of pain. So I wasn't imagining that I was in severe pain because I've had lots of things happen to me before that have caused me pain, but nothing maybe outside of gallstones gave me this level of pain. So yeah, delighted to hear that I wasn't just imagining that. Chad said, hey Craig, got here late. Sorry if you've covered it. Do you think Slot keeps Mo on the bench tomorrow and this weekend? No, I haven't covered it yet, but you've segued me rather nicely in, Chad, so thank you. Let me talk about this situation, right? So there's 2 people who I'm going to bring up, and both of these people think that Mohamed Salah should be on the bench tomorrow. First one is Paul Merson. I know, but I agree with him. And the second one is John Aldridge. So let me read you through what Merson has said. You can't keep picking players based on how good they were in the past. Slot made the right decision to drop Salah in the last game, and he should stick to it. And that's Paul Merson, as I said, urging Liverpool to stick with him. Now, John Aldridge, in his opinion piece for The Echo, said, Mohamed Salah is not finished at Liverpool, but I don't want him back in the team now. He said, first things first, Mohamed Salah has not had his days as a Liverpool player, but there comes a time when the very best have to be taken out of the firing line if they aren't reaching the levels required. And he goes on in the piece to rightly speak about Mohamed Salah's place in Liverpool's legacy and that he isn't finished. But, again, you know, I'm very happy that people are now saying the things that us fans know should be said. It's a difficult conversation to have around Mo. We always talk about this. But in my predict 11, I put him on the bench for tomorrow. Because, like I said, I think we need to look to the future, and we found a way to win against West Ham. Let's continue on. But there are often people who come in to say, look, Mohamed Salah isn't the only problem. That's true. That's absolutely true. But, you know, whichever way we want to lace this up, he hasn't been himself this season. And we have felt like we're playing with a man down at times out there, because it's a really important role to play in the squad. And you need to have the ability to get up and down that right wing. Same as on the left side. You need to come back in and help. Now, the fact that Joe Gomez was in the squad playing at right back, you know, that would help Mo out, I'm sure, as well. So if he is played tomorrow and Gomez plays at right back, it'll be interesting to see if we see a difference in Mo or if we still look very vulnerable down that side. So that's where we're kind of at, mate. But look, I've spoken to a lot of Liverpool fans, and many people feel that he should still be benched tomorrow. I'm in that camp. I think he should be on the bench tomorrow. I think the front three should be Wirtz, Ekitike, and Isak. That's where my head's at. Now, I'm not expecting to see Ekitike and Isak both play. And I think we may see a similar thing where one plays and the other comes on 65, 67 minutes, something like that. But yeah, let me know what you guys think on the Salah thing. Because look, I know we all see these things differently. We all view football differently. But, let me know where your heads are at with it. Would you like to see him straight back into the 11? Or, are you kind of like me in that you don't want to really mess around with a team that's won a game too much? But I do want to go back to one thing, actually, while we're having this conversation. And that is the report that said that Liverpool want to look at Frimpong. I don't want Frimpong playing right wing. I don't mind him playing wing back, but I don't want him playing right wing. There's no way I'm going to believe that Frimpong can do a similar job to Salah or a natural winger with regards to his ability to chip in with goals. I just don't see it. Now, we've seen Frimpong play wide right on a handful of occasions, but we also have to remember that he's been out now for, it'll be 6 weeks by the time he's back. And he wasn't brought in to play right wing. Now, I know Liverpool might say, well, look, he was brought in to cover along the right-hand side, but again, we're shoehorning people in. What's going on in this, man? I'm looking at the scores here. What? 5-4? Fuck off. Really? It was 5-1 at one point. That's nuts. Is that right? That's mad. That's nuts, lads. 5-4, wow. Holy shit. How did they do that? How did they manage to shit the bed on that one? Wow. That's crazy. Hate all this Mo bashing from social media. Mo should start tomorrow. Now, honestly, mate, look, I'm open to your point. I really am. But I don't think it's Mo bashing personally. I just think it's an honest opinion. What do you think justifies Mo starting tomorrow? Because I think, again, we're treading this line of valid criticism versus hate. Now, of course, there are always going to be people, especially on social media, that do go too far. But that's not what I'm talking about in here tonight, and that's not what most of the people in here tonight will be talking about. We're talking about valid critiquing of a player who has, set the standard. And you can't just keep playing him because he used to do great stuff. I just don't think it's realistic. Now, I'm not saying he's the problem, like I've said many times, but he is part of the problem. The real Johnny Sin said, Craig, it's December and Greg Evans and other journalists are still spewing the don't block Rio's pathway gimmick nonsense. Such gaslighters. It's bullshit, mate. Look, you know me. I'm going to come on and give you my opinion, and I don't care what others have to say. My opinion is that this argument, like you've said, of blocking the pathway is bullshit. It's an excuse. Because if you're not want to block the pathway, then you got to give the kid a chance. You got to give Rio a run of games to justify not blocking the pathway. Because if we're being honest here, he's not ready. Nor should he be ready at this age. But the balancing act of what to do to get him that experience, that's on Arna's shoulders. Fair enough. But I don't like this excuse. We can't write off a year or 18 months waiting for a player to develop. That's just madness. You're leaving yourself short then in the meantime. And we can't afford to be falling down the league table, not securing Champions League football. There's talk that could cost us about 120 million quid. So, I get we can't block the pathway, but give the kid a chance. Because it's all just hypothetical now. Until we see Rio play, this is all just waffle. Hope you get well, mate. I put my application into the army yesterday. Got an interview next week, fingers crossed. Congrats, man. Do you know when I was younger, I genuinely thought about the Navy myself at one point. But fair play. You're out there doing your bit and you're wanting to make the world a better place. So I wish you every success. Please do let us know how you get on with your interview. I wish you every success with it. Lance, did I miss your super chat, mate? My apologies, sir. My apologies. I have it here now, mate. Sorry. Hey Craig, like you, I'm a huge Ederson fan. Fabrizio said he would be around 30 to 40 million. For me, that's a steal at that price. Hope we pounce. Lance, I'm right with you. You know, I think 30, 40 million quid's a bargain, quite frankly. Um, and there was talk that we didn't go from a year or two ago because he doesn't have the same maybe ball playing ability as the likes of Ryan Gravenberch, but I think he has more of a defensive side to him than Ryan Gravenberch. So between the two of them, I think he'd be a really good option to have. If you want to play with a two in that midfield, we played a 4-2-3-1 system recently. He can provide that extra shield, and he's got experience as well. Part of the Atalanta team that won the Europa League when they surprised everybody with that victory. Ademola Lookman hat-trick, if I remember correctly, in the final in Dublin. So, yeah, I'm with you, Lance. And sorry, mate, that I missed that initially. My bad. Loan him to Brighton or something. Perfect place. At this point, a loan would feel more sensible because what we're doing is just stunting his development. It's all the work on the training ground, all that stuff's not worth his shit if he's not getting repetitions out there on the pitch. Because we've all heard the same version of this over and over again. You can't replicate real minutes. You can't. So the kid's got to play footy. And he can't play for the 21s because that would mean he's out of the first team setup and his recovery would mean he's missing days training. But at the minute, like I said, we're looking at a bench with a manager that sees Chiesa and Rio and isn't really going to give them minutes. So to talk about blocking the pathway, I think it's double speak and it's waffle. Who's Ederson? He's a defensive midfielder for Atalanta in Italy. He's a Brazilian. Very good footballer. Right in his prime now. And I would say definitely worth 30, 40 million pound of anyone's money. What have we got? Wharton and Anderson would be far better options. They would, but they'd also be 3 times more expensive, and may not be available. So to get Wharton or Anderson, out of the two clubs they're at, we're gonna have to pay a super premium on them. And there's so many teams linked. Manchester United are looking, Manchester City are looking. And, we've got to be somewhat realistic as well about what we do. We've just spent 125 million on Isak, 70 something million quid on Ekatike, 116 million pound on Florian Wirtz. And we do need ADM, but right now I would say 30, 40 million for Ederson would be really good business. If Frimpong can beat his man and provide goals and assists, he should be given a chance. But that's like you've invented a hypothetical scenario to give him a chance. If he can beat his man, what about if he can stay fit? That'd be a good start. Sounds you all right? Or John, sorry, John. Yeah. Look, we seen him play there against Galatasaray, and he stunk the gaff out. He looked way off it. He's not good enough to play as a right winger. He just isn't. He's a right wing back. To try and shoehorn another person in to a position where isn't his natural position just feels like we're doing that too often, mate. We're putting in midfielders at right back. We're talking about our cover at centre back being coming from midfield as well. I just don't think Frimpong's going to be good enough ultimately at the other side. And again, we are now into December and he's played a handful of games. Flay to Slay said he's more of a box to box. As I said at the start, you may not have been with us, mate, at the start. I did say he's not a natural six in the same way as somebody like a Fabinho is, but he's more of a six than a Ryan Gravenberch. He's a 6 and an 8. He's a combination of the two, which is why I think sitting in a defensive 2 or sitting in a 2 in front of a back 4 would suit. And I think you could have him and McAllister, him and Gravenberch. Yeah, so I agree with you. He's not what I would class as a Rodri, but he is more defensive minded, and I think could be a good middle ground, if that makes sense. If Ederson were to be signed, where would we play? Again, probably in a two, either alongside Maka, alongside Gravenberch. You know, in my head, and of course it is just in there, I'd be thinking, bring in him, move on Endo. You know, that kind of situation. So you're freeing up one spot in the squad, you're freeing up a wage, and you're actually going to get somebody then that the manager may interchange or use, because Endo's, again, not getting minutes. So in my head, he'd be coming in and Endo be going out. You know, again, hypothetical here. Craig, would you sell McAllister to Spain if you could get Elliot Anderson? So, yes, and I've said this a few times. I do think if you bring in somebody of that ilk for that kind of money, you're right, an Elliot Anderson, you know, that would be a hefty transfer fee. You probably do have to move somebody on. You know, numbers wise in midfield as well, I think we'd be carrying too many. But look, I'm not wishing away Alexis McAllister. I love Alexis McAllister, but in your scenario, yeah, I would. Am I alone missing Klopp's heavy metal style of football, going straight for the jugular and just overwhelming opponents with pure pace and power? No, you're not. I would dare say, mate, if you surveyed most of the people in the chat here, a lot of them would find the style of football on their own boring, and I'd be one of them. I'm not saying it can't be effective at times, but I'm with you. You know, give me back to that 15, 20-minute period where we just kill a game off, we just smother people, and we just win the game. You know, right now it feels like everything feels like hard work, and it's not a very fan friendly style that Arna plays. Would that be fair? Because the amount of comments over the last year and a half and people going, "This is boring," even when you're winning games of football, you know, it's effective, but it's not sexy. It's not easy on the eye. Does Brighton have a sell-on clause on Maka? I actually don't know, Mark. It's a good question, mate. I don't know the answer to that one, but it's a really good question. I'm going to try and look into it because, you know, we got him at a very good fee because of the release clause, so maybe there is a sell-on in that, but I couldn't sit here and tell you definitively, mate, one way or the other, because I just don't know. So, we're asking, would you take Ederson as a DM signing? Do vote away on that. When we get to 1,000 votes, we'll move on to something else. Right, let's get into a few bits of the other news today. I've done that from Cat Footy Insider. Yeah, so this piece here from Footy Insider said that Liverpool Chiefs are reportedly fuming over the lack of game time that Harvey Elliott has had at Aston Villa, and the player is also thought to be annoyed at constantly being snubbed by Unai Emery. I don't blame Liverpool or Elliott for being annoyed by that, because the one thing that Harvey didn't want to happen this year is happening, which is he's not getting football in a World Cup year. That's why he left Liverpool. He left Liverpool with a heavy heart because he loves our club, but he wanted to go and get minutes and try and put himself into Thomas Tuchel's thinking for the World Cup. And he's gone to Aston Villa and probably got less time than he would have at Liverpool, even in a very, you know, sporadically used environment. It feels weird, you know, because they brought him in. Now, look, we had a Villa fan kindly say to us beforehand that it was the sporting director that was there to kind of fall for Elliott and Sancho to be brought in, and Unai Emery was never really won over by the idea. But surely Elliott would have sat down and talked with the manager, and I'm sure would have been reassured that he would have been getting minutes and starting time. So it's a really shit situation because he can't play for another club in the Premier League because he played for Liverpool, he's played for Villa. So it's kind of come back to Liverpool or up shit creek. It really is sad state of affairs, and he's not going to trigger the clause to sell him for 35 million if he's not playing. Then nobody knows the absolute number that triggers that. There's been talk it's about 10 games, but he hasn't featured in the last 7 that I'm aware of. Would I take Jose Mourinho to replace Salah? No, never. Jose Mourinho is not a Liverpool manager. He isn't. I think United were wrong appointing him as well. I don't think he's a United manager. No, I wouldn't. Like, I feel football has moved a little bit past the Rafa Benitez, the Jose Mourinho styles. It's even moving away from the Pep Guardiola kind of style that we'd all become accustomed to. So for me, no, not Mourinho. How would you feel about Semenyo at Liverpool? At 65 million, good. I think we'd be a good fit for Antoine Semenyo. I'm not going to lie, he wouldn't have been top of my list if I could have talked about bringing in a pacey forward. There probably been other names that I would have thought about, but he's Premier League proven. He's really fast, so naturally two-footed. Yeah, I'd be absolutely fine. No complaints from me if we signed Antoine Semenyo. Victor, such a kind super chat, mate. Thank you. Very generous of you, mate. As everyone tonight, anyone that sends in a super chat or anything, thank you so much. It means a lot. I never ever take it for granted that people spend their hard-earned money. So thank you. Just checking in. We're on our way back, lads. Love you all. Well, I hope you're right, my man. I hope you're right because it's been a shitty last month or two, hasn't it? And I can't even tell you, man. The simple thing of just winning, against West Ham, it's made life a bit better again. So hopefully we can continue that tomorrow. As I mentioned, Sunderland are coming. They've played 6 games away in the Premier League. They've picked up 7 points. They're a different animal away from home than they are at home, where of course they've turned the Stadium of Light into a bit of a fortress since they've come back up. So I'm hoping between that, Leeds at the weekend, Brighton after that, these are winnable games. So this is really no excuse territory for the manager either at this point. Andres said, Semenyo's not the kind of player we need. He's just like Salah. He never tracks back. And when he loses the ball, he never defends from his position. As good as a striker, but not the kind we need. So, truth is, you could be right on the track and back thing, mate. You could be wrong. I would say to you, I have sporadically watched them. I've looked into his numbers. I've, seen how he played against us. But I'd still be okay with it. Because if Liverpool were to bring him in, they'd have to believe that he could fulfill the role in the way they want to play. And he doesn't seem to be lacking in energy to track back. And he's, 25 years of age now, so coming into his prime. I just think it's a realistic one. But I get your point as well, and I respect it. That's the point. He wouldn't fit into Liverpool's style of play. We've went from heavy metal football to something I don't recognise. So yeah, look, that's another good point. It's another good point that you've raised, Paddy Whacker, because at this moment in time we're talking about our style, right? But what is it? I don't know what our style is at the minute. So it's hard to talk about a player coming in to fit our style when in our. Oh, hang on. Did you say Simeone's not? Oh, Simeone the manager. Sorry, dude. Sorry. Hang on, I'm confused. What did I confuse? Because this guy said Semenyo's not the kind of player we need. He's just like Salah, never tracks back. What have I got wrong? Let me scroll back up. Sorry, I'm trying to find the comment that I got wrong. My bad. Yeah, sorry, I can't find it. But the answer for me on Simeone is God no. God no. Yeah, no, he's a football terrorist. I wouldn't have Cholo Simeone managing Liverpool, not a chance. Mark, hey Craig, hope you're well. Where's by Chechich? He's training as far as I know. I've not heard of a setback or anything like that. He hasn't been in a matchday squad yet that I'm aware of, so don't know the answer on that one, Mark. Thank you. 2 years with us, man. That means a lot. Thank you so much. Your super chat said Simeone. Right, let's go back. Sorry, this one. Frodo, my apologies, bro. Yes, thank you, guys, for letting me know. Would I take about Simeone at Liverpool? God, no. No, mate. Not a chance. He's just completely wrong for us in every sense. I like an argumentative, emotional manager on the sideline, but he's a bit too much even for me. And his style of football at Atleti, I find horrendous, and the way his players act, and we talk about the dark arts. He's beyond the dark arts into just pure and utter shithousery. The sad truth is that Chiesa is not even gotten a chance to have a good run of games. I'm sure he's as good as Semenyo and could save us a lot of money by an extra centre back, said FC Pitchside. Look, the whole thing about Chiesa is such a weird conversation to have, isn't it? Because it doesn't matter what you and I want. And I it's true. Because the manager has his mind made up on Chiesa, and nothing has seemingly changed his stance on it. He's been working with Fede now for just approaching 20 months, maybe something like that, or 18 months. And he's still seemingly not being won around by him, and won't play him. Why was Federico only 20 mil? He wasn't getting game time. The manager, Moda, who came in to take over Juventus at the time, just told him he wasn't in his thinking, and we got him on the cheap. Simple as that, really. He wasn't getting game time, and the manager, who's since been sacked, told him he wasn't in his thoughts. Craig, here's one. Craig, here's one doing C slot last season. I don't know what you mean by that, mate. Sorry. Yeah, sorry, man. I don't know what you mean by that one, Derek. We may not know how fragile Case is. His injury record is awful. But you kind of summarised it all there. We don't know, but we know he's been in matchday squads. We know he's been in matchday squads consistently over the last year and a bit. So if he's in matchday squads, we as fans have to assume he's fit. Because we're not being told otherwise, and he's in the squads. So, I don't know. So City just about clung on, did they, to win? That's still gonna put a bit of pressure. Guardiola looks like he's cracking a bit, by the way. I don't know if you've seen his press conference the other day. It was like 2 minutes. I'm wondering, are they starting to get maybe wind of some of the charges or something like that? Because Pep doesn't look relaxed at all at the minute. He looks pretty stressed. Oh, the scan, you're killing me. My favourite YouTube channel to watch whilst munching a bacon double cheeseburger. Oh, dude, I'd love a bacon double cheeseburger. So, am I your favourite YouTube channel to watch if you're not eating a bacon double cheeseburger? Or is it a very specific time that you enjoy the channel? Only in bacon double cheeseburger time? Because I don't hate it. Either way, dude, I don't hate it. FC Pitchside said, Szoboszlai covering the right wing position and Bradley as a fullback. That side will be stacked. Yeah, I can't wait for Bradley to be back. I can't. But there's been a bit of double speak on that. I wanted to get your take on this, actually, because there's a bit of double speak from the media on this. Is it this one? No, not this one. Not that one. Not that one. Yeah, okay. So there's been a difference of how this has been reported from Lewis Steele and James Pearce. So Lewis Steele writes that Jeremy Frimpong is back on the grass and hoping to be back in around a fortnight, which is similar to Connor Bradley. But that's not what Arner said, because as James Pearce said, Slot says he expects to have Connor Bradley back available for Leeds away at the weekend. Now, this is what I'm talking about. It's very fucking simple to report what the coach says. And Lewis Steele said 2 weeks, and James Pearce reckons Bradley could be back for the weekend because he's back out in the grass running. Now, I did hear 2 weeks for Frimpong because he's just started to get back on the grass, but do a bit of training. But yeah, I'm on James Pearce's side of that one, that it's more likely the weekend than further along again. Sorry, Craig. I meant to say can see Slot staying in a job at the end of the season. This is a bit of a cliche, Derek, but I really do think that these next run of fixtures will decide it. You know, one more loss now and the pressure comes back on again. Like one more unexpected loss, I should say. Like if you lose to Man City or you lose away at Arsenal, they're games that you can stomach losing. But if he drops points tomorrow or he drops points away against Leeds on Saturday, the same conversation's just going to come back around now. I don't think, my gut feeling is I don't think he'll be able to do it. I just don't think he has the buy-in as much. But I gotta say, I want to be wrong, because I don't want the whole process of another manager finding another way of playing, finding, players that he likes, don't like. I'd like this to work. We won a league last year, and I know that does give you a little bit of grace, but I'd like to say that that's been well and truly used up. We're not talking about Klopp here, who had a body of work at the club for 6, 7, 8 years, and you can absolutely allow a down period in that and talk about a rebuild. But this is a manager who won the league and has taken us backwards since then. And all I'm hearing are excuses from the media and those that cover the club. That kind of, like, let me read this out for you. It's absolute bollocks of the highest order, but Romano said that Liverpool don't want to judge any of their players just because of these 2 or 3 months that have been complicated for almost all of them. The fuck? Liverpool, I get no one to judge new players who've come in that quickly. Fair enough. But I'm sorry to not judge players like Van Dijk, Konate, Mohamed Salah, players who've been here plenty long enough to know that this is unacceptable. Liverpool should be judging them. We either have standards or we don't. And he's basically leaning into the Diogo Jota thing again there. And we're going back to July, it's now December. At what point are we going to just take some fucking ownership of the fact we haven't been good enough and stop looking for these paltry, lazy excuses? We're losing games of football that we shouldn't be losing. And it doesn't matter how much change is there. The calibre of footballers at this football club is beyond losing to Galatasaray. It's beyond being trounced 4-1 at home by PSV Eindhoven. It's beyond being rinsed by Nottingham Forest 3-0. So in any era, in any version of Liverpool, this is unacceptable. So the club are just feeling like they're just feeling sorry for themselves and making excuses because nobody wants to take ownership or responsibility for the shit show. Do you think Hughes and Edwards want to go, oh yeah, we got some stuff wrong? Of course they don't. They're not going to come out and go, yeah lads, we shit the bed. But I'll say it, you can say it, it hasn't been good enough. And anything that tries to just pacify fans or gloss over that is codswallop. It's bullshit. Would you take De Zerbi as manager? No, I wouldn't. I wouldn't take anybody that wanted to play Mason Greenwood, that actually wants him in his dressing room. Absolutely not. You heard the video or the audio. I heard it. That's enough. Any manager that... I'd walk out of a job if a club tried to tell me that I was getting Mason Greenwood in my dressing room. I would tell them to go and fuck themselves and I'd be gone. So, De Zerbi to me, no thank you. For that reason. And look, I'm blunt about these things, and it's a very sensitive subject for me on a personal level, like I've said before. But right is right and wrong is wrong. It's as simple as that. I don't care about benefit of the doubt. I don't care about anything. I heard that audio. You heard that audio. That kid is a toe rag, and anybody that wants to manage him can fuck off, in my opinion. Simple as that. Imagine what these underperforming players would feel like seeing Klopp on the sideline, banging on his chest. My God, would freak out as well. Exactly. This it all feels a little bit too soft for me at the minute. There's too much leeway being given for this failure so far this season. Jason said, Craig, would you try Robbo on the right hand side? Might help Salah. They have a great connection. It was definitely something that behind the scenes when I was talking with Connor and some others, um, I did give consideration to. But you're kind of still running a bit of a risk, aren't you? So you've got two right backs out. If you play both your two left backs in games as well, so Kirk is on one side, Robbo on the other, and heaven forbid one of them picked up a knock or an injury, then you're really up shit creek. I probably would rather roll the dice by playing Joe Gomez to have all of our fit centre backs out there on the pitch than I would on another fullback. But saying that, I'd rather Robbo playing right back than putting in a Dominic Szoboszlai or Curtis Jones because he's a natural fullback. 100% Craig, we shouldn't allow players to play horribly consistently and get away from it. Criticism can be a good thing when it's constructive so that the players learn from it. Look, we have every right as fans to have an opinion because I was hearing Spurs booing again and half-time, full times, and it's so funny watching the reporting about when other clubs boo their players, their manager. It's all grand. Liverpool do it to Trent once, and we've never heard the end of it. Criticism is deserved at the minute. Blind loyalty is just nonsense. You earn the right to have a blip, and some of these guys have earned that right, but it's got to turn around now. They've got to start winning. Craig, have you said anything about the 13 police officers who should have gotten charged with misconduct for Hillsborough? I read the report today, but I'm not qualified to discuss it. I've always steered clear of this situation because I'm not qualified to discuss it with any level of balance. So I've kind of just, whenever we've covered Hillsborough, we've just read out statements and reports to be factual on it because it's a very emotive, sensitive subject that I don't want to do anything that would add any pain or grief to any of the Hillsborough families or anything. So I tried to not really cover it, to be honest, mate, and just stick to the statements put out by the club and the Hillsborough Survivor Foundation and stuff like that. I just, it's tough one to discuss because I'm emotionally involved like every other Liverpool fan in it. And what happened was a fucking joke, quite frankly, a travesty of justice. But I read another thing before I came on that was something from the South Yorkshire Police, and it made me sick, quite frankly, reading it, talking about trial by media and stuff. And these are the same people that tried fans by media in the newspapers by lying to the Rag and many others. And then they have the fucking cheek now to be talking about trial by media for all of these, what they describe as elderly officers. Yeah, who've lived their full fucking lives, who got their full service pensions, and who sailed off into the sunset. The families didn't get that. The families who lost people who went to a game of football. The city who was victimised by these scumbags in the police force. It makes me sick, quite frankly. Just even knowing what the families had to fight for just to get basic common decency, and an apology. The whole situation it's just a stain on the British policing system, and it doesn't feel like they've ever fully accepted that. From the outside, like I said, I'm Irish, so I think it's an outsider's opinion, but for me, it's just wrong. It's just so wrong, and there's nothing that feels worse than a complete cover-up job from the establishment. Because I'll tell you why, it plants the seed of doubts in everything. And it allows conspiracy theorists and stuff and theories like this to just blossom. Because if you show there have been cover-ups and they're proven, it gives credence to any old story, And like I said, we discussed this a little bit yesterday. Somebody said, your moments in Liverpool that have you've made you stop still or you remember, and I said I remember exactly where I was when I found out about Hillsborough, and I was only a youngster at the time. It angers me to a level that these people have had to fight so hard for basic stuff. Like it's and yeah, sorry. This is why I don't cover it, as I said, because I'm this irked by it. I can only imagine what the families of people who both attended the game or who lost loved ones at it. Man, they've got nothing but my admiration for the grace and courage that they've shown. It's not easy to take on the establishment. It's not easy when everyone's telling you you're wrong to keep fighting that good fight. Heroes, each and every one of them. Right. JD, so I really don't think there's any coincidence with all the bad refereeing decisions we get and the fact that the head of the PGMOL is a former sergeant with South Yorkshire Police. Look, I don't know any set of fans from any club that is happy with the refereeing in the Premier League. Taking aside the fact that we'd all have a referee or two that we think shaft us. Just a simple question of, do you think the PGMOL is fit for purpose? I'd love to see every season ticket holder of every supporters club or every football club surveyed with that question. The stakeholders in the game. The ones who are spending their money week in and week out. Look, we all spend our money. But I'm saying you have to draw, I guess, a line somewhere. I'd love all of those fans, season ticket holders at every one of the clubs in the Premier League to be asked, are you happy with the PGMOL? Because I fucking guarantee you, people aren't. Mark, how are we, mate? Welcome in. The ref sometimes gets too involved. Have you seen the statistic where tackles from the early 2000s to now have decreased by like a third? No, I haven't. There was one the other day that really stood out to me, and I can't remember which match it was. I think it was our game, actually. I think it was our game against West Ham. But there was a challenge in that game that the West Ham player, I think, got a yellow card. And I don't even think it was a foul. Got the ball. And didn't get the ball and clear out the man. Just got the ball. And it was a good old-fashioned challenge. And he was booked for it. It feels at times that they're trying to make football non-contact. And it isn't. It's a contact sport. Mark said, I can't understand how bad the referees have gotten. We've had some arseholes over the years, but always at a top level of refereeing. It's so bad. It's so bad and so inconsistent. Look, let's just talk about the Enzo goal for Chelsea against Arsenal. That seemingly slipped past VAR, who have every bit of technology. It took somebody else to call that out after the game. And then Sky, to fair to Sky, they've done a piece on it showing that it looks like he was offside. Why wasn't that picked up by VAR? It's inconsistencies. Like Maresca said, Caicedo got a red card, and I think there was a similar challenge from Bentancur for Spurs against Chelsea, almost identical, and it was a yellow. So he's right, you're right, we're right. The inconsistencies are pathetic. But even more pathetic is the cover-up job. Even more pathetic is the allowing of this shit to happen consistently by people who go on Sky, go on TNT Sports, go on any of these publications and talk about how hard the jobs are. And they always find a way to get out. When it suits them, it's a high threshold, or they throw out the old clear and obvious bollocks. It's all waffle, it's all shit, and we've been sold a pup. Simple as that. We've been sold VAR as this solution to everything, and all it's done is make people angrier. Jacko said, if my memory is correct, there was a vote on VAR 2 or 3 seasons ago whether to scrap it or not, and only Wolves voted to get rid of it. There was certainly a vote with the clubs and something to do with it, but I don't ever remember the fans being surveyed on it. Because, what makes it even more egregious is we were slower than other leagues to implement it. So the Premier League sat back and waited, seeing what worked in other leagues or not, and they've still managed to shit the bed. I was watching Sky last night, and I don't know if you would agree with the lads on this, but I do. They were talking about the changes that could be made to VAR at the World Cup. So second yellow cards, corners, stuff like that. And I think it was John Cross in the Mirror said that normally at these big major tournaments, your Euros, your World Cups, VAR is a lot better. And he's right. It's a lot quicker. I'm not saying they get all the decisions right, but the whole process is way better when you're at these international tournaments and way more consistent throughout the tournament than it is in the likes of the Premier League. So for me, 100% agree with them. I think when you see international competitions, it's a lot better than the nonsense we get. Craig O'Clockdown said, "Hey Craig, I was curious if you and the folks in the chat have any match day rituals, certain kit and such. Keep up the awesome work." Do I have any match day rituals? I eat spaghetti bolognese most match days. As a bit of a comfort food, but no, not really, not really. I always try to listen to a bit of music before I start streams. I read the chat a little bit to see what mood people are in. But no, I don't really believe in superstitions and stuff like that. So no, I can't think of any, but I'm sure some of the people in the chat probably have a few. They're doing away with penalty rebounds too. I like that, by the way. As a former goalkeeper, I like that because everything is stacked against the goalkeeper on a penalty. So I like the idea of if the penalty's missed, tough shit, indirect free kick out or whatever. I do think it should be that's it. It stops. You take the penalty. If you score, cool. If keeper saves it or hits the post or goes wide, indirect free kick out or whatever. It's that seems fairer to me. So I've saved a couple of penalties that people have scored rebounds from over the years when I was younger, and it's soul destroying because you're so happy you've saved the penalty, and then you're kind of on the ground looking at this lad running back in to just tap it in or so. It's fucking soul destroying. What tunes do I listen to? It depends what mood I'm in. It could be anything from like the other day I was listening to Gigs and Kano, before I went live. Another day I could be listening to Garth Brooks. Another day I could be listening to Backstreet Boys. Genuinely, it just depends what mood I'm in. I'm weird. I listen to sad music and it makes me happy. I don't know. My wife doesn't get this about me. She listens to a lot of upbeat music, but I sad music makes me happy. I don't know. It just makes me feel connected or something. It's weird. Like I love old fashioned ballads and love songs, stuff like that. Do you think Madrid will sack Alonso this season? I do, yeah. I don't think he'll see out the season because of player power. So, 70% of the people that voted, we had over 1,000 votes, 70% of people said they would take Ederson as a DM signing. I want to keep McAllister, get a centre back wide forward to replace Salah, said Giant Gifts. What do you think our league placement will be roughly at the end of the season? Hard to say, but a wild guess. I'm hoping third or fourth. I'm hoping. Fourth, maybe worst case scenario. But yeah, third or fourth is kind of where my head's at. But that's me being optimistic. It could easily be sixth, seventh. True that, Craig, but also the feeling you get if you reach the follow-up as well as class. It is, but that's why penalty shootouts are great for goalkeepers, because you go into a penalty shootout and you can only be a hero. That's it, because nobody expects you to be the guy, but a penalty shootout is great for a goalkeeper because it's a win-win situation. Do I like Scooter, and if so, what's my favourite song? Endless Summer. It's got to be Endless Summer. I went to see Scooter in Dublin actually when I was, I want to say about 19, probably. It was brilliant. Yeah, I'm mad into my happy hardcore and stuff like that from back in the days. And Scooter, Fergie, Westbam, Marusha. what's the name of that Scottish crowd? Ultimate Buzz. There was another one. Oh God, what's the other band I'm trying to think of? Yeah, I can't think. There's one more band that I can't think of from Scotland that was mad into the house music and hardcore when I was younger. Fuck, what were they called? Ultrasonic. Ultrasonic. Yeah. That was right up my street back in the day. Proclaimers, Mark. We're talking about dance music here, bro. Proclaimers aren't dance music. Yours jumping all over the world, basic but learning the dance. Yeah. Scooter's great. Scooter's is like proper Euro happy dance music stuff. Like, it's cool. I heard Craig loves a bit of the Spice Girls. Actually, no. As much as I do love cheesy pop music, not really Spice Girls kind of thing. No, not me. Mulder said, "Hey Craig, happy 9 months, like a wee fresh baby. Appreciate you, man. Appreciate your support for those 9 months. Thank you." Giant Gift said, "I want to re-sign Konate after he down tools to try get to Real Madrid. He needs to improve his acting skills. Any good acting classes for Konate, you know, Craig?" So I want to ask you guys on that actually, because how do I phrase this? Okay, let me ask it this way. Okay, so I pose the question like this. Do you have any anger towards Konate over the Madrid situation? And if you're not sure why I'm putting this up, I'm going to read out something from the other day, and it will explain it, I hope. This one? So yeah, Dean Jones of ESPN said Ibrahima Konate had very much had his head turned by interest from Real Madrid and he was hoping to move to the Bernabeu. However, the Spanish side had other names they were looking alongside the defender, having now withdrawn their interest. For me, if that's true, there should be no new contract for him. He should be told, on your bike, off you go, bye-bye, adios, see ya, fuck off, quite simply. Because he's made mugs of us. And I get people might see it differently. And I'm not trying to say my way is the right way. But I do feel strongly about this. If you were trying to bullshit everybody, to drag this out, just to wait to see if Madrid wanted you or not, before you looked at signing a new deal, then adios, mate, there's the door, bye-bye. Don't let it hit you on the way out. Because it looks like Upamecano is going to sign a new deal at Bayern by, some of the rumours today. Madrid will look elsewhere. So, for me, you haven't shown the loyalty. So, why reward that? Other than it's an easy way to keep a player at the club. But if he didn't want to stay here, or we were second best, I don't know, man. That doesn't sit well with me personally. Now look, that story from Dean Jones could be wrong, but I've not seen anybody counteract it to say he is wrong. I've not seen anybody call him a liar for putting it up there. It hasn't sat well with me since. And it's like Trent all over again, only for he's not getting his move. This pretense of, I'm not sure, or, if you wanted to go, be fucking honest. Be honest, because nothing fans hate more than feeling like they're being taken for mugs. Do I like the Gorillas? Not really my cup of tea, no. I know they're headlining the Electric Picnic this year over here in Ireland. They're one of the acts confirmed for it, but not really my cup of tea, no. The hopeful guy said only wants us because he isn't good enough for Madrid. And do you know what the irony is? It's his own fault. Because if he had have kept his head screwed on and not been all over the shop, he might have got that move to Madrid. But it's his own failures on the pitch that have removed their interest. So that's kind of ironic and almost poetic in my mind. Why hasn't he signed it? If it was a lie, he wants away for more cash. Well, look, Konate seems to think of himself as a leader, but he is at best, what's the word I'm going to look for here? He has a mistake in him, even in his very best, when he's playing to his best and he's full of confidence, there's always a mistake in him. And that's only been exacerbated this year. It's like mistake after mistake after mistake. And it's shocking. And I don't know, for a club that keeps banging on about standards, we don't seem to fucking hold anybody to them. Do you know what I mean? We're not a stepping stone club. If this lad's just taking the piss out of us by saying that he wants to go to Madrid, or journalists are writing that he wanted to go to Madrid, how do you think that makes Liverpool fans feel? And how do you think the club should react to that? Because for me, they should be disgusted by it. Not kind of accepting second best and that, okay, you'll do now because you didn't get the Madrid move. Because, again, make no mistake about it, this has been engineered to run down this contract. Now, players don't accidentally run their contracts down. It's been engineered to get to this point. And we're all just, again, supposed to just sit around and think the best of everybody, and nobody has self-serving interests. It's all just bullshit. Nothing hurt me more than Nando going to Chelsea. Coutinho to Barcelona is probably one that really, really riled me. Yeah. That one really, 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 really annoyed me. Because there was just so much lies around the whole situation. Yeah, no new contract for me too, bro. Show him the door. Send out a message to the other players. Don't take the piss out of Liverpool, basically, I think is what you're saying, Waddy. He probably aims to captain the team someday, but he can't. People like Szoboszlai, Jones has the passion, local lad, and someone who can talk. Yeah, look, I agree. I think Dominic Szoboszlai definitely is captain material, 100%. But look, it's a weird one. It's a weird one because if we do not re-sign Konate, then we've got to go out there and find another centre-back. But I just think he's made his own bed at this point. And I think it's always just going to feel like we were second best to me as a Liverpool fan now. I would give him a contract 5 years and use him as backup. For the amount he's probably going to ask for, though, mate, I don't know. I don't know if that would work out because he's probably going to want 160 upwards, something like that. So you're doubling his contract. I'd just say at that point, is it worth putting that money into a new centre back? Maybe he would come in on lower wages and you could make up the transfer fee difference then over the course of the 5 years. Yeah, that's kind of where my head would be. What other right-sided centre-halves are there out there on the market? I know he's not been great, but still. Is that where we're at, though, man? Is that where we're at? Like, he's not being great, but it'd be a pain in the bollocks to go and find somebody else. I mean, respectfully, it's not my job or your job to find centre-backs. We're not employed as scouts. The club allowed this situation to develop. They allowed the contracts to be run down. Robbo's is running down. Konate's is running down. Last season, there was, 3 of the lads' contracts running down. You know, these are things the club have to be held accountable for. But allowing it to get to this point means you're probably going to overpay to keep him now. So whatever way we dress it up, it just doesn't look like great business. And I do think the Kwanzaa thing is going to happen. Some people seemingly still don't know about the Kwanzaa situation fully. It was reported by, I think, Lewis Steele, that not only do Liverpool have an amount in the buyback agreement if they were to bring back Jarell Kwanzaa, but they also believe that there's an agreement on the wages or on the contract to bring him back from the player side. So it does feel like Liverpool certainly have strong considerations to revisit Jarell Kwanzaa and bring him back to the club in the future. Now, I don't know when that would be. I don't know if that'll be in the summer. I don't know if that'll be in another year down the line. But I could see a world in the future where you'd have Mark A, Leone, Kwanzaa, and maybe AN, other centre-back at the club. Would make sense. Gay is miles clear, much more solid in a team that is almost always defending. He is far more solid. You know, at their best, Konate probably edges it. But over the course of a season, without a doubt in my mind, Mark A is a far more consistent, solid defender. I'm the Oyster King said, for me, anger at Konate is on the pitch, not off. Fair. That's fair. You know, his performances this season have been, like, even for his standards, been very, very messy. Very messy. Corbin said the penalty given in the Newcastle game is shocking. Obviously, haven't seen it, dude. Haven't seen it. But, you know, not surprising. We're only talking about poor refereeing, and there you go. Irfan said, honestly, we need a Robbo extension. Kirk is not at the races. So some of the reporting that we covered yesterday suggested that even the players in the dressing room are a little bit surprised that Robertson hasn't been getting more starts over Kirkes this season. And if that's coming out of the dressing room, yeah, it's pretty straightforward, right? But I do think we have to be somewhat careful here again, because, you know, we've seen the Mohamed Salah situation and the Virgil situation get resolved, and performances haven't lived up to the levels of contract. But I do agree. Ultimately, I do agree, because even if Kirkes comes good, Robbo as an alternative, I think he's got 2 more years in him easily. So yeah, I probably would give Robbo an extension, but I wouldn't be giving him a pay rise at this point in his career. I think if you're keeping him around, you're keeping him around to battle for the place. But I don't think it's going upwards in pay scale at this point. That story was from Football Insider. I think it wasn't. They were the second lot. If my memory's right, I think Footy Insider were the second ones to cover it. Let me just quickly fly through my notes and I can see if I have. Yeah, so Footy Insider was yesterday. Let me go back one more day. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I had it in my notes the day before. Yeah, it was Sam Wallace of The Telegraph. Said the chief complaint from within the squad seems to be that Andy Robertson has lost his place to Milos Kerkez, with the latter yet to demonstrate that he's an adequate replacement. So yeah, Sam Wallace of The Telegraph was the initial one that I'd seen anyway. Johnson, Collins Game, said, I think the problem with Konate was he thought he was already a Madrid player, and hearing that Madrid don't want him has given him a reality check. That sounds pretty spot on, mate, to be honest, which sounds pretty spot on. I guess if you're a Liverpool, what do you do to leverage that? You know, how do you address that? Yeah, if you're Liverpool, how do you address that? Do you leave it go a little bit longer to see if his performances do become more consistent before ultimately making that final decision. But what we do know is he has a contract offer on the table now. It's been reported by multiple sources that he has a contract offer on the table, but he still hasn't answered it. And that would wind me up if I was Liverpool. You know, this isn't his first contract offer that has been put down, but we are now a month away from him being able to sign a pre-contract agreement with clubs outside of England. So Liverpool really do need to get a definitive answer on this sooner or later, and sooner, preferably. Giant gift. So I talked with a Man United fan yesterday. He seemed to believe Semenyo would choose them, being a boyhood fan. Does he not know that Semenyo's an Arsenal fan then? Because he's not a United fan that I'm aware of. My understanding is he's an Arsenal fan. But that doesn't hold any water with players in their careers. Ultimately, players will pick where they think is best for their career at that moment in time. What will develop them better, what will give them a chance to push their game on. And United looked at him in the summer, but they made their decisions. They went out there and they signed Brian Mbeumo, Benjamin Šeško, and Matheus Cunha. They have the money for a midfielder now, not for a wide player. So I think if United are going to dip their toes in the market, it'll be for somebody in the centre of the park. Why do I remember Kirkes playing more minutes last year than this? Well, he would have played more minutes last year at Bournemouth, yeah. He would have played every week, pretty much. Ekitike was a United fan. He came to Liverpool. Look, football's littered with players who've done that. Like Carragher was an Everton fan, played for Liverpool. Anthony Gordon's a Liverpool fan, played for Everton. Steve McManaman, I think, may have been a boyhood Everton fan. It doesn't mean anything. It's what's best for their careers. And, you only get one career. You can support the football club or dip in and out of supporting a football club your whole life, but ultimately this is your profession. And, you want to end that career with honours. And at this moment in time, you'd certainly be saying that Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester City, far more likely or far more attractive a proposition. Maybe not so much us at the minute, but, in recent times anyway. Alejandro said, I'd rather Konate walks. He was awful for Klopp's final season. Got dropped. Whenever he relaxes, he starts making silly mistakes. And he gets too touch tight, and he gives away too many fouls. Look, he's been at the scene of the crime a lot for problems we've had this season. Would I take Anthony Gordon at Liverpool? So my answer to that has always been yes, but I know I'm not in the majority. Most people, when I mention Anthony Gordon, straight away their eyes gloss over and they go, no. And I get it. I do get it. But I still think he would do a good job. And I still think there's more to come from him. And I think if he had have joined us when it was talked about a couple of summers ago, he would have been a good player. And he is a good player for Newcastle. But, I've always been in the minority on that one and I'm aware of it. Hey, Craig, my girlfriend, Jorha, loves listening to you when I'm listening to you. Will you say hello to her for me? Well, firstly, Kieran Lorgan, I'm really sorry if I've mispronounced the young lady's name, which I'm sure I probably have, dude. But, hello, and thank you. Very kind of you. My own wife hates listening to me, and I don't blame her. But I appreciate you. And I appreciate you letting Kieran listen and watch as well. Oh, so, actually, I might be doing a little thing here in my hometown, in Gorey, because I know there are some people who watch the channel that are from surrounding areas, Arklow, different parts of Wexford. So Breen's, which is the Liverpool pub here in my hometown, they rang me today because the builders that are working with me drinking there, and they passed on my number. So they're bringing somebody over for a show, a musical show. Andy Hodgson is coming over to do a show in January. I think it's the 24th. When we play Bournemouth away, I think it is. So I'm going down to talk to them on Monday about, what they'd like me to do. So on that game, I might be able to do the watch along, and then I might leg it down and do something down the town. But I'll let you know more about it if it happens, because it would be the first thing I've ever done in my home city. So I'll let you know on it, in case you just want to pop along or whatever, if you are local or somewhere around Ireland and wanted to come along. Craig, after school tomorrow, I'm off to Ellen Road with my mates to watch Leeds, Chelsea. Let's hope for a success. Hate watch Fark on line 2. Nice. Look, I've gone over and watched Spurs games when I've been in the UK. We were in London at once, so yeah, man, enjoy it. Have a good time. Never mind the hate watch. It's footy. It's top level footy, so enjoy it. And it's good to visit new stadiums and stuff as well, my man. So Ellen Road, Leeds fans are class. I love Leeds fans. They're brilliant people. And we both have a hatred of United, so that works. Would I take Adeyemi from Dortmund? Something about him just doesn't sit right with me. He feels like, and again, this might be unfair, but he feels like a bit of a Billy Big Bollocks. Yeah, something about Adeyemi just doesn't sit well. I don't know if it's something in the back of my mind that maybe I read something about his attitude at Dortmund or something. I don't know. But he has kicked on. I'll give him that. He has kicked on, but I just don't think so. I don't think I don't think he'd be consistent enough. Do the watch along from the venue. Oh, be way too noisy, man. Be way too noisy to do that. But look, it's only 5 minutes down the road from where I live, so we could do the watch along, and then I could run down and do it afterwards. But I just want to let people know in case they're local and they wanted to pop along. I'll have more details soon. It's not an Anfield Agenda show or anything like that, because like I said, I'm finished doing them. But I've always wanted to do more stuff locally, so why not? Be fun. Kaz, how are we? Kaz said, morning Craig, mods and family. Slept in and missed most of the stream. That's alright. Hope you had a good rest. Anyway, I hope everyone is feeling good and gearing up for a win. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm very hopeful, Kaz. Very hopeful that we get the win. Also, I went to the doctor today, as I was saying, and I finally got diagnosed with having nerve damage in my shoulder, which definitely explains the pain I've been feeling. Do you think Slot could have improved Minamino? Yes, but I still don't think he would have cut the mustard at Liverpool. That whole situation was a weird one because such a good value transfer. What was it, 7.5 million or something? But never really got given a proper run at Liverpool. Craig, if you had to guess, what do you hope our starting 11 will be, and who would your manager be in 2-3 years' time? Oh, in 2-3 years' time, manager-wise, God, I don't know. I hope it's still Arne Slot, because I want us to be successful, and I hate talking about sacking a manager. So I'd like him to have turned it around and still be here. Team-wise, I'd like to see Rio well established at that point. Hopefully, Nioni in midfield. Be interesting to see how Hugo Ekitike and Isak are getting along in 2-3 years' time. I'd also be very interested to know what our centre-back pairing might be in 2-3 years' time. But yeah, managerial-wise, I don't know. Sebastian Hoeneß could be an option. Alonso could be an option down the line. Harry Maguire said, Craig, I bet 200 quid on Liverpool to win tomorrow. You're a braver man than me, mate. You're a braver man than me. I can't remember the last time I put money on Liverpool to win a game of football. Yeah. I've stopped betting on Liverpool games pretty much. I throw the odd five on a Van Dijk header if the odds are good, but yeah, I just try to want to enjoy the games these days, because if Liverpool lose and the bet loses, you're just like doubly annoyed. Do you think we'll ever win the real treble? I've got a chance. I've got a chance. I'd see, for me, I'd rather the League Cup than the FA Cup. So I'd rather us win the Premier League, the Champions League, and the League Cup, because I don't hold the same regard for the FA Cup as others do. I don't know why. I think it's because I've seen Liverpool do so well with the League Cup, particularly when it was, when they were redoing Wembley and it was being held at the Principality in Cardiff. We had a really good run at that point. But yeah, we'd have a chance to do it, of course. But look, What I'd love to see in my lifetime again now is a League and European Cup double. You know, can you imagine that season if Liverpool won the league and the Champions League in the same season? Um, yeah, that would be incredible. That would be a real statement season, which is what we all hoped and thought maybe this was possible this year. But, you know, so far it's not really playing out that way. Right, let's check in on our poll. So we asked, do you hold, I meant to write any anger, sorry, but I wrote ant anger. Do you hold ant anger towards Konate over the Madrid situation? If you haven't, please do vote away on that one. We've got about 20 minutes left, 25 minutes left in tonight's stream. We need more FA Cups because we're top on League Cups. Yeah, but let's push the gap out further. Win more League Cups. I love the League Cup because it gets you a nice little trophy, a nice little Wembley trip in before the season's getting towards its finishing point. And I think it really builds a good level of confidence. That, you know, especially if you're in the mix for the bigger trophies at the end of the year as well. Who would you take from an all-time Everton team? Probably Rooney. Neville Southall back in the day was a really good goalkeeper all the way back. Sharp. Kevin Sheedy, you know, from an Irish perspective. No, in all honesty, for my year in the Premier League, probably Seamus Coleman. He's probably the answer. Him or Rooney, but probably Seamus Coleman. I'd probably put my Irish hat on there and take Seamus Coleman. Who's your ideal 5-6 attacking options at the club once Salah eventually leaves? Ideal. Isak, Ekatike, Wirtz. I kind of like all the attackers we have now. Rio. I just think we need to find the right young, pacey attacking winger to replace Mo. Because I feel like we're lacking pace up top at the minute. And directness. The real Johnny Sin said 2 goals stopped the quad for us in 2022. Vinny and Gundogan. Yep. That game against Real Madrid that Vinicius Jr. scored and we lost still bugs me because we were the better team. We were the better team that day. Only for Courtois having a mad one. We were stopped to the Champions League. If we can win the next 7 games and Arsenal lose 1 game, then we play the Gunners with a chance to go within 3 points. There's a lot of ifs there, though, isn't there, mate? Look, Arsenal are currently 9 points clear of us. That's a big gap to make up. Going to the Emirates is going to be difficult. I think it's a Thursday night game as well, if my memory's right. I think it's a Thursday night game. So it's going to be really, really tough there. And the media have a mad horn for Arsenal to win the league. I just swear they do. So I don't think we're going to go there and get a result or a win. We might get a draw, but I still just don't feel it. I don't think we deserve to talk about a title race. We aren't there. Like, we're 8th. Do you think we have had our bad spell now, Craig, mate? Andy, do you know what, mate? Honestly, no, I don't. I don't think it's over. This next run of games may gloss over some of the problems. Now, what I hope can happen, Andy, over the next few games is it's confidence inspiring. But if you're looking at the results or the run of games, mate, we should be winning these. Like, you know, Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, you know, they're not daunting fixtures. But even if we win them, I've got to say, I still, you know, if we go away and win in Italy against Inter Milan, that'll be, yeah, that'll be a result that I'd go, yeah, fair play. That's a big result. But I'm not going to be won over or swayed one way or the other if we win these next 3 or 4 games, because we should be winning them. But honestly, no. I feel that there will be more inconsistency this season. I don't think we'll have a run of losses anywhere like we have had. But I do still think there'll be plenty more points dropped this season, and it's going to be an inconsistent one. Wolves leading us gave City encouragement against Villa. Yeah, I remember that was a horrible day, man. I was over in Liverpool for that day. Yeah, that was horrible. Because I remember having some hope at that point. Yeah. We don't have a big enough squad to challenge even if our form improves. Isn't that mad though, considering the money we spent? And I don't disagree, by the way. But considering the money we spent, it is crazy that we're talking about not having a deep enough squad to compete across them all. Because that was the whole point of what we were doing in the summer. So here's my 11 for tomorrow. And I'm not expecting this 11, but this is what I would do. Gomez at right back. Alisson in goal. Gomez at right back. Konate, Virgil, Robbo. Jones, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai. Wirtz right. Isak central. Ekitike left. That's what I do tomorrow. That won't be what happens tomorrow, but that's what I do tomorrow. Grim Reaper said, I like the lineup against West Ham. Wirtz and Gakpo rotated on the left while Dom stayed on the right. Joe also needs more playing time. He looked more dangerous than Mo has done. He was very good. He was brilliant. And look, if Mo does play tomorrow and Joe is behind him, I'm expecting a better version of Mo because he does have that cover behind him. But yeah, I still would bench Mo tomorrow, if I'm being honest. And I'm not on my own, as I mentioned at the start of the stream. Paul Merson said Liverpool should be keeping Salah on the bench as well. He said, you can't keep picking players based on how good they were in the past. Slot made the right decision to drop Salah in the game and he should stick to it. John Aldridge said the same. Mohamed Salah is now finished at Liverpool, but I don't want him back in the team now. And I agree with that. He should have to prove himself again now because it's a new season and we've a new group of attackers and the best should be playing. The ones in form, the ones that are stepping up this season so far or are gelling. So I just don't think Salah should play tomorrow from the start. Look, I'll be blunt about it. I'll probably be using him sparingly until he comes back from the AFCON. You know, maybe against Leeds you give him some minutes, maybe against Brighton, but you know, that's going to be his last game, by the way, before the AFCON. And that's been confirmed today. Let me just read this out to you again. Excuse me. So I'm going to fly through the news for everybody who's just come in from top to bottom. So we're going to start off with a graphic that was posted on set pieces, attack-wise, and the XG created from those set pieces. Liverpool are bottom of the Premier League. Bottom. For the XG for attacking set pieces. That is shocking. Top of the pile are Chelsea, but to be bottom, like 20th, that's shocking. Arne Slot said that Mohamed Salah will go to the African Cup of Nations on December the 15th, meaning that he will be available for the game against Brighton at Anfield. So that'll be Mo's last game before he heads off to the AFCON. On Mohamed Salah, Arne said this, of course, a player's not happy if he's not starting, but he was very supportive of his teammates. He's a top professional. That's brilliant. That genuinely is really good to hear. Also, Alex Crook said, Mohamed Salah remains firmly on the radar of the Saudi Pro League clubs. It is believed Al Hilal are a leading contender for Salah, but Al Qadsiya have also expressed interest. Lewis Steele reported this is now a win-win for Arne Slot. Salah could come back with a bang to prove anybody who genuinely believes Liverpool are better without him wrong. Or, if he does not, the Reds boss knows he now has a team that can function as a well-oiled unit without the main man. Speaking about Wirtz, Gomez and Isak, the manager said this, they're not able to play 3 times 90 minutes, that's for sure. I don't think they can play 3 times 90 minutes in a week. And now we have to wait and see if they can be involved from the start on Wednesday. All 3 can feature in all 3 games, but he doesn't think they can play the full 90 in them. Slot, on being told about social media abuse he's had after the City game, Slot said, I expected it more after the Forest game. But why do journalists always go to that, by the way? James Pearce said that that's about the abuse that he's received on social media. But what about the fair criticism that he's received on social media? This reporting always vilifies fans and it pisses me off. Because yes, there are people on social media who are filled full of hate. But there are also many, many, many hundreds of thousands of Liverpool fans who were just pissed off and know it isn't good enough. So why can't we talk about the criticism that he's received rather than hate? Because again, it just panders down and vilifies people. Fabrizio Romano said that Liverpool don't want to judge any of their players just because of these 2 or 3 months that's been complicated for almost all of them. Mark Gay is not a priority target for Real Madrid, reports Mario Cartagena. Lewis Steele said Jeremy Frimpong is back on the grass and hoping to be back in a fortnight, which is similar to Conor Bradley. But that differs from Arne Slot saying that he expects to have Bradley back at the weekend for Leeds. Wirtz will get bullied, so shouldn't play tomorrow. I disagree. I disagree in him getting bullied, and I disagree in him not playing tomorrow. He was our best player against West Ham. Why would you drop your best player? Greg Evans said, despite admiring pacey wingers like Antoine Semenyo, Liverpool is unlikely to rush into signing another attacker after recent heavy spending. The club is conscious of not hindering the development of Rio Ngamoa and want to see how Frimpong performs once he's recovered. Then, Sky Sports have said that Spurs are intensifying their interest in Antoine Semenyo ahead of a January transfer window. Footy Insider report that Liverpool Chiefs are fuming over the lack of game time that Harvey Elliott has had at Aston Villa, and the player is also thought to be annoyed at constantly being snubbed by Unai Emery. Then we had some words from Ibrahima Konate, which are about Liverpool's form, and Ibu said, the last time something like this happened, I've no idea. I don't even know if it happened in Liverpool's history, losing so many games in a row. Now it's part of football. Sometimes we're up, sometimes we're down. The curve is never stable, and the most important thing is to stabilise it at some point. Jamie Carragher has been speaking a little bit about Luis Diaz and it not being too big a deal of Liverpool losing him. He said, that's where I think the hierarchy of the club have said to Arne Slot that he's the head coach. Arne Slot might have wanted to keep him, but the hierarchy said he's 28. If we give him a new contract, he'll be on massive money. It was a good deal for Liverpool, and he's going to look good in the Bundesliga because it's not as good as the Premier League. Diaz was a very good player for Liverpool, but he wasn't great. He wasn't Firmino, he wasn't Mane, he wasn't Salah. He was a good player. Liverpool got some good years out of him and got a good price. It was a good deal for everybody. They also have to remember that he wanted away. He wanted to go to Man City last year. So Diaz has always been angling for more money or a move. Dominic King talks about quite how good Mohamed Salah's appearance record for Liverpool has been. He quotes Up the Joe and said there have been 317 Premier League matches since Salah made his debut at Watford in August 2017, and there are only 17 that he's failed to play in. That is incredible. Then we talked about Indy Kayla having a couple of Liverpool updates where they said Arne Slot's job is still on the line. Next 2 games are vital. Liverpool are eyeing January move for Atalanta midfielder Ederson. Manchester City must sell marquee player to sign Antoine Semenyo. This still leaves Liverpool as the favourites. Then Paul Merson said, you can't keep picking players based on how good they were in the past. Slot made the right decision to drop Salah in the last game and he should stick to it. And then that's kind of agreed with by John Aldridge in his piece for The Echo, where he said Salah's not finished at Liverpool, but I don't want him back in the team now. And he goes on to talk about, Mohamed Salah's legacy being secure, but the team looked better without him in it. And he's right, it did. James, how are we, James? Said, hi Craig, just wondering, do you think the club will look at a Salah replacement next summer? If so, who would you like? For me, would love Desiree Doué. So I think next summer would be the smart time to look, because then you can bed the player in over a year and you can manage Mohamed Salah's decline, if you want to call it that. Elise is the dream for me. If I was to say, go out and get me this player to play in that position, it's Michael Elise every day of the week. But I don't know how likely, if at all, that would be possible. Itachi said, I would take nice little money from Mo from Saudi and give him a warm bye-bye. Yeah, we ran a poll the other day because somebody had said, if Saudi offered 100 mil for Salah, would you take it? Yeah. Now I would. And it would have to be that type of number. Because, it wouldn't just be that I want rid of Salah, because I don't think he's finished. I do think his best days are behind him, but I do think he still has a lot to contribute to the team. But 100 million on the table, yeah, you'd have to take that now, surely. Especially if it was something the player was open to. Assume it was media spin or the slot actually say the target this season is Champions League qualification. Well, that would be the target now. You know, we've no right to talk about winning the league. We're 9 points behind Arsenal and have had one win in, the last 4 games. So, to talk about a league title or anything like this would just be silly. Champions League has to be the minimum this season, where we're at currently now. Right, we've 800 votes. We need 200 more votes on the do you have any anger towards Konate over the Madrid situation, being that Dean Jones reported that he wanted that move to Real Madrid. Because for me, I don't want him having a new deal now. If he really did want that Real Madrid move, he's just fucked over Liverpool fans. So for me, it would be bye-bye, best of luck. You don't deserve a new contract. If you were holding out for a move and you didn't get that move because of your own shit performances, and then you think you can just accept an offer from Liverpool belatedly, that doesn't feel right to me. Craig, what if we only ended the season with the FA Cup? It depends on the league position, FA Cup and Champions League qualification, he probably just about clings to his job at that point. But FA Cup, no Champions League qualification, it's irrelevant. A trophy's great and all, but it's still not Champions League football, and it's still not one of the big two. And in the summer, we all spoke about the big two being the priorities this year. Did I miss something Ibu really wanted out? Again, I'll read out to you the report from Dean Jones from ESPN. And he writes... You can search this yourself, by the way. He writes, Ibrahima Konate had very much had his head turned by interest from Real Madrid, and he was hoping to move to the Bernabeu. However, the Spanish side had other names they were looking at alongside the defender, having now withdrawn their interest. So, if he wanted to move, and that's what he was holding out for, then he was taking the piss out of everybody and drawing out this process once again. And like I've said, I've not seen anything to come out and say that isn't true. I've not seen anybody call Dean Jones a liar. I've not seen it rebuffed by other journalists. So, it makes sense, though, if you think about it, because he hasn't signed the new deal. He hasn't said he wants to stay. He hasn't committed anything. He's just sat there and dragged it out. But now we know the Madrid move's not on the table for him. So his options are kind of limited at this point. He will always find a club to move to. But, will he find a club of Liverpool level? I don't know. PSG won both last year from the same position. Yeah, but the French League is not the Premier League, dude. I'm not saying we can't turn around and win the Champions League, Jason, because I very much think it's possible. I really, really do. But we're not winning the Premier League this year. I can't see it happening. We've got to be honest and say we're going to drop more points. Arsenal will drop points as well, but 9 points and we're in December. I just don't see it, mate. Look, if we start moving up that league table and Arsenal start dropping points and it's on, cool, let's talk about it then. But for now, I just think it's... I don't think we deserve to talk about it, is the honest answer for me, mate. CSH85 said, hey Craig, hope you're well. Keep up the good work. Thank you, my friend. Loving the channel. I'm expecting a loss every time we play at the moment. Really hope we've turned a corner. Do you think we have? No, I don't think we have. Look, I'm not saying we might not win tomorrow. We might not win on Saturday. But, we're beating teams we should be beaten. With all due respect, West Ham are horrendous this season. Horrendous. And we still made hard work of that. So... let's see how we perform tomorrow against Sunderland. But again, we should be beating Sunderland. If we can beat Sunderland, if we can beat Leeds, if we can beat Brighton, that's 4 wins on the bounce. That's got to mean something. So if we do that, cool. That's at least stopped the rot properly. And the league table will look a lot prettier if we can pick up 9 points from the next 3 games. We'll certainly be back in the contention then for the European spots. And who knows? Who knows what happens with Arsenal over the next few weeks? Arna on Salah being benched. It's not a nice thing for you. Not for a Liverpool fan, not for me. A player that has been so important for us, you want to see him on the pitch. I prefer to see Salah on the pitch, scoring his goals and doing something special, rather than the camera being on him when he isn't in the game. He has been so important for us for so many years. He'll be important for us in the coming days because it is days as he goes to the AFCON. I mean, again, that just sounds me like he's going out of his way to compliment Mohamed Salah. I just feel Arnold just hasn't got the bottle to really take on the situation. He went on to say, the reaction of every player in this group, no matter whether he's playing or not playing, is to bring the best out of yourself every single day. You're in this building and we're playing. That's exactly the attitude he showed on Sunday and Monday as well. He was good in training, as were the others. But this is all just waffle, you know? All of these are just words. Ultimately, performances speak for themselves. And performances this year from Salah, from Konate, just haven't been good enough. And many others as well. Are we doing one last New Year's Eve stream this year? I don't know, man. I haven't thought that far ahead. I'll be here, so probably. I don't know if I'll be drunk or not, but I'm almost certain I will stream on New Year's Eve, yeah. I'll be at home, like I said, I'm a boring elf fecker, so I'll be streaming most likely, yeah. And whether I do the midnight part, I usually do, yeah. So I'm gonna say yeah. Did I mention yeah? Let's go with yeah. Irfan said Sunderland will be a good marker as their playing style is exactly what we've struggled against. They've had a mixed bag away from home. They've got 7 points from 6 games away from home in the Prem this season, Sunderland. I'd be far more worried if we were going to the Stadium of Light tomorrow night. That would concern me, but thankfully it's at Anfield, so I'm hoping we can get the job done. What's the problem with protecting his own players? All managers do it. None. Absolutely not. I'm just saying we can't read anything into it. You know, like I've always said, managers have to say these things, and you're right. No problem with it, Alex. It means nothing to me at the moment. Performances are what matters. You know, bigging up everybody, building confidence in them. Cool, that's fine, like you've said. But there's been a lot of talking lately, mate. A lot of it, and it needs to be backed up by performances. New Year's stream studio. A New Year's stream in the new studio with Connor and Chris. Well, we're in different countries for a start. Chris is in a different country to me and Connor. And I there's no way we're in the studio, I don't think, by New Year's Eve. No. I mean, I have a soft date of end of January in my head because, you know, once the building's done, there's still a lot of other stuff to get done, and we're waiting for the table to come from China. So that's, you know, on a slow boat all the way coming across at the minute. We've got to get the inside done up. We've got to get the painting done. We've got to get flooring in. We've got to get all the camera checks and stuff like that. Yeah, it's gonna be probably end of January, February at a guess. If Arsenal don't win the league now, surely Arteta's got to go. Oh, mate, yeah, I'd agree with that. You know, if they don't go on and win the league this year, he's got to be called out at that point. You know, you can't just be bridesmaid. He's won one trophy in 5.5 years, and that was in his first season where he went on to win the FA Cup. Since then, he's spent a load of dough and he's won fucking nothing. So yeah, if he doesn't deliver a big trophy to Arsenal, I don't mean an FA Cup or a League Cup, I mean if he doesn't deliver a Champions League or a Premier League this season, he should be fired. It shouldn't even be a debate. Arne Slot speaking about Dominic Szoboszlai as a right winger. He said, I don't see Dom as a right winger for the long-term future in this club. Dominic is a midfielder who could help us as a fullback or as a winger if needed, but he's more of a midfielder than he is a fullback or a winger. A thing that was important for me to do is in some of the other games, we were going more man-to-man than in this game versus West Ham. So the last line of 4 could stay more in one place. Dominic, as we all know, runs for 2, and that was helpful in that game. But in the long term, We should have wingers playing as wingers, midfielders playing as midfielders, and defenders playing as defenders. Yes, we should, Arna. Yes, we should. So go get some wingers. If you could name the biggest factor that has cost us the title this season, what would you say that is? Good question, man. Ego. Yeah, and I'm going to try and explain why I've said ego. I think too many people want to be the guy, the man, the leader, the talisman. And I spoke about this way back when Troy Deeney mentioned it initially, saying that you've got Salah, who's the guy at Liverpool, Isak, who was the guy at Newcastle, Ekitike, who's the guy at Frankfurt, Wirtz, who's the guy at Leverkusen, and you've got all these guys jostling for position. And then you've got Diaz coming out and saying that the Bayern dressing room play for each other. And it does feel like there's a bit of selfishness this season and a bit of bravado and not enough sacrifice for the team going on, particularly in the front line. So I would say some egos need to be dropped, and a team ethic needs to shine back through again. Because what was our greatest attribute for me in our time with Jurgen was that we were better than the sum of our own parts. They played as a team. They fought for each other. They worked for each other. They covered each other. And you'll never win anything in football if you don't play as a team and you don't do the hard yards. Look, that's my biggest factor. Diogo is also an important factor, and what happened there. Change of personnel and gelling is, of course, an important factor. And the manager making some unnecessary changes is probably another factor. But like I've tried to say, I don't think there is any one thing that would solve it or is responsible for it. I do think it's a combination of 3, 4, 5 different things. But for me, ego would be my biggest one. But like I said, just an opinion. Feel free to disagree. Justin said I disagree. Cool, but here's the thing, Justin. Why? I've no problem with you disagreeing, my man. You're absolutely, of course, entitled to your opinion. But, if you disagree with me, make it easier for me and let me know why. Because a lot of the time I'm on here doing this stuff, mate, people come on and call you out on stuff, but they never give a counter opinion. They just say, "Oh, that's wrong," which is cool. It might be, but counteract that by saying what your argument is or your point is, and then we can have a dialogue on it. FSG need to sign footballers, not divas. They show no desire to play for the manager and who play terrible on purpose to prove a dumb point to heal their ego. Do you think you'll ever do a Republic of Ireland watch along? Yeah, maybe, mate. Certainly if we get to the World Cup, I'll be covering it. I need to just feel that connection again with Irish football. And look, some of it's my own fault, like I've said. Should be attending more League of Ireland. Should be keeping my finger on the pulse of Irish football more. No doubt about that. But it's been a slog, as I'm sure you're aware yourself, Shane. It's not been great. I kind of grew up around Italia 90, USA 94, Saipan 2002. And now I've so much disdain for the FAI and the way it was run and the lack of proper infrastructure put in. It's great to see the League of Ireland starting to improve, grounds improving, standard of football is definitely improving. It's great to see Irish teams in the Conference League now, to see Shells and Rovers in there. But yeah, I'm just going to have to feel that connection again, Shane, with Irish football, that the whole thing just hasn't been very fan friendly, has it? And I'm not just talking about results on the pitch. I'm talking about all of it, from the managerial situations to the way the FAI was run. It feels like football was taken for granted in Ireland, and it's sad. Shane said, man, I think he'd be great. I've been following all matches in the Aviva for the past 4 years, so I get the pain. But you'd be great overviewing the team. Look, I'd love to. And please God, mate, I do. You know, maybe if we get to the World Cup, I fall back in love again with Irish football. Maybe I connect with the team again. Maybe, you know, maybe it is something I start to do. Because I promise you, man, US, I still speak about to this day. Italian 90 was one of the best summers of my life. Not just from a footballing perspective for the country, but the whole country. You know, I'm not sure how old you are, Shane, but, you know, ask your mum and dad about it maybe. It felt like this was Ireland's coming out party then, you know, as a country. We went from this gloomy, dark place in the 80s where there was no money around to believing in ourselves. And, you know, the going out into the world stage and, you know, the Celtic Tiger came after that. And, you know, it's just, yeah, it was great. Man, it was great. Duncan said, the players who aren't playing for well for us seem to play well when they're playing for their countries. So maybe you should say once back at Anfield, they're just not gelling. Genuinely think we lack two wingers with pace who can press and help the fullbacks. Irfan, I agree. Definitely, mate. Pace is huge and we don't have enough of it. Bradley Warren, how are we, Bradley? So, Craig, do you see Wirtz and Frimpong in the future dominating the right-hand side? No, I see Bradley. If Bradley can stay fit, I think Bradley's the guy on the right. I'm interested that you said Wirtz because that's why I think he should stay there tomorrow. For the reason you've said, we look balanced, and that was even allowing for Wirtz to drift around the pitch. Luke said Paul McGrath. Oh man, I could sit here and talk for hours about Paul McGrath. Paul McGrath is my idol of Irish football, without a shadow of a doubt. Keane was a better player, I know, but Paul McGrath was everything I connect with as a person. A flawed human being, but a good soul and a good man. And an incredible servant of Irish football. I love Paul McGrath dearly. I'm 19. I've watched all about it. I did look at Dream on Earth. At least I've got a chance to see a glimpse in the past few weeks. Definitely, Shane. And you've seen the buzz that gave the country, right? And you've seen the interest in Irish football immediately spark because the Aviva season tickets are gone, as I'm sure you're aware. You know, it can do so much good, man. It can lift the whole country when the football team's doing well. Right, ladies and gents, I'm going to end this poll. Oh, we need 5 more votes. So if you can do vote, we'll get it to 1,000 then. We're asking, do you have any anger towards Konate over the Madrid situation? Yes or no? We need 3 more votes now. One more. There we go. So, there we go. We've got it. 72% of people said yes, they do feel annoyed or anger towards Konate over the Madrid situation, and I certainly do. Craig, will you ever be excited about signing top players again after an underwhelming start? Definitely will. I look, I have every faith that Wirtz settles in, Isak settles in, and I'm still as excited about those signings as I was in the summer. They just haven't hit the ground running yet. But yeah, look, I love the summer, man. I love those signings. I love the buzz we were all feeling. It was one of the best times doing what I do here. It was incredible to be part of that. So look, I'm going to say goodnight in a second. Build the squad around number 7 and 8. Dom and Wirtz will be fire, said Itachi. Thank you guys so much. I will see you tomorrow, 7 o'clock for the watch along. I'll try to get a news video out at about 3:30, 4 o'clock if I can tomorrow as well. But thank you all for dropping in tonight as well. Appreciate you. Have a good one, and fingers crossed we can get back to winning ways again tomorrow and build on that win at West Ham. So look, we'll see